That was a segue for you to say.
Well, he was still on his phone.
Oh, you could totally have swooped in there.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Marvel Retrospective. I am the man whose reflexes are too quick.
Nice.
Wow.
I am the collector. Dylan Mas.
That was totally what I was going to go for.
Sure.
Really? Was it?
This is absolute horse baloney.
You have a lot of other... horse baloney. You have a lot of other Drax quotes you could drop, though.
I am the... I like this knife I'm keeping at Taylor Field.
Nice. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Did you like that one?
You messed up the line. I was gonna. It's my favorite knife.
Your face looked like you were so
I
upset.
was trying to build up to it. That's my favorite knife.
Oh, man. Good
Ladies
times.
and gentlemen, if you don't know what the Marvel Retrospective is, we are reviewing.
Check. Cut the check.
Oh no. We are reviewing every Marvel film from Iron Man in the MCU to Ant-Man. We've reviewed the others recently, so you can go back and check those out instead of us just talking about them as like something like Black Panther. We just reviewed it.
Yes.
We're not going to review it a month again later.
Maybe we will in the future.
Yeah, maybe. I think 5 years is almost the kind of
Do another
time. Yeah.
Marvel Retro.
When we get to Avengers 10, and then we'll...
Maybe we'll skip like Thor Dark World or something though. Or maybe we'll like lump.
I thought you meant we'll do again but do the movies we haven't.
Oh,
redone.
I see.
I'm not fucking redoing Thor Dark World.
Yeah.
Watching it enough and reviewing it is.
I mean,
good.
if the fans want to see it, I'll do it. But I don't want to do it.
But we are reviewing them all. We're taking a look back at the movies. So Guardians of the Galaxy. This is, I think at the time when it came out, and I guess I'm going first. At the time when it came out, I remember hearing it announced at Comic-Con. This was a comic that I had knew of, did not know much of the characters. I knew Green Rocket because of course you know a fucking tree and a raccoon, but I knew of them. I had not read a single one. I did my research before the movie, but I just remember Comic-Con happened and they announced it, and I was just like, why? Like out of all the people, even the lower tier people that they had, I was just like, why is it this one? And I think for many people, and I think this is the same thing people look back at like rose-tinted glasses of like, oh, of course the Avengers was going to work. I think now Guardians is this brand, and like Guardians 2 is huge, and those characters are huge, and Chris Pratt's a megastar now. But when you look back at the time, that was a huge fucking gamble to do this movie with a talking raccoon, a tree, and yeah, sure you had a few people in there. They got John C. Reilly and Glenn Close, but your main cast are not unknowns, but they're not big stars. I could say Zoe Saldana's the biggest one. She's known for Avatar, playing an alien, right? Like Chris Pratt was that guy from Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
You had Batista, who was a former wrestler, and you had Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel, but they're the voices, right? It was a huge gamble, and it pays off so big. And it is the thing of, this is in the spectrum of, I was talking about with Captain America, how like, I looked at movies like with a little bit of critique, even like less before we got into this. That was the movie where I'm starting to follow critics, and I just remember a week before, like, reviews coming out being very, very positive, and it was the reverse movie where I talked about Winter Soldier, where it didn't meet my expectations when I first saw it. It met them and blew it out of the park, but for me it was just nice to see, this movie that I really had not much expectations for. I liked the trailer, everyone was just loving it, I went to see it, and I loved it. I just remember, I don't know if there's anything that tops it, I'd have to really think hard, but in the past 5 years, it's probably the most comedic experience I've had in the theater, and just laughed the whole way through. And that's not a shot at Guardians 2, which I think is a better movie. It's because Guardians 2, I think, the jokes maybe aren't as good, and there's more emotional scenes in there. That's why I like that more. But with this, I just remember from start to finish, this feels like an amusement park ride, and it feels like it's so much fun. And I just remember it's one of those movies, the second I walked out, I was like, I need to see that again. I need to see that again. I need to see that with anybody that hasn't seen it, so I can hear them laugh at these jokes that are happening. And the comedy is fantastic, but it's the emotional stuff, too, that does with Guardians that happens in 2 as well. But it's what holds the story together. Whether that's Peter Quill and his ties to his mom, the tape, or just the group coming together as all these outcasts and all these losers just trying to find meaning in life and what they're going to do. And it just comes together so well. I think the only kind of weak point is the villain, but that's a classic Marvel thing. We'll get into it. I think he's very, very generic. He has some moments that are cool, and I like the actor, but it's very ho-hum as far as what the villain wants to do. Oh, he's going to slam a thing down on a planet and destroy it. Okay, we've been here before, but you know what? The characters are great. Moments are great. Action's good. I don't think there's any scenes that stand out of me being like, wow, that's some of the best action Marvel's had. But it's all good. Nothing's really bad in this movie. Even the villain for me is just like decent. Like he's not Malekith, you know. So I think this is a phenomenal movie. Every time I watch, this is a movie that I watched this time with a critical eye, but this is a movie many times. It's similar to Deadpool, where I've put on the background and just kind of have it there, and I can check it in, check out at any time. So love this movie. When I saw it, still love it. It's one of those movies people can say best Marvel movie or best comic movie. You can fight anybody on anything, but it's one of those, it's warranted. And yeah, Guardians, let's do this.
You know, I remember when this movie, you know, it was announced and they had that little trailer or whatever for it. Like, I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know anything about Guardians of the Galaxy, but I had thought as well, like, why these characters? I don't understand how they relate to the Avengers or anything like that. It's a whole, they open up a whole big can of worms.
It's a big can of worms.
Yeah, it's
Space
huge.
worms.
Space worms, all these new characters, planets, everything. It seems so large to tackle, but obviously being where we are now, I see how, like, there's no reason why this movie should not have been made. And that at the time is how the people making Guardians back in the day felt. Obviously, there's no way why, or no reason why we should not make this movie. It fits so perfectly with the direction we're going to be going, and I'm so glad that they did it. That being said, like, I remember when I went to the theater, I didn't even book my ticket online. I just went to the theater. I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do? Like, this was back before we had like Adam was taking off. I'm sure. It was at the Plaza actually, and I remember I went there and I was like, yeah, ticket for Guardians, please, and.
And also, can I get your number? Like, I'm confused why you're being so awkward about it.
So I remember I went in there and I managed to find like a good seat in a relatively decent spot, and it was packed. I was there for about like 3 minutes, and this theater was completely jam packed. And I was like, wow, a lot of people must really be wanting to see this movie. And sure enough, like, it was a great time. I laughed, I had fun. I thought, you know, Groot is absolutely fantastic. This movie is just. It is so much that I was not expecting, and so much that I had wanted without knowing, all in one, and it just it stole the spotlight. So I think that this movie, it was required and needed, even though the fans did not expect it or feel like they were.
You were gonna say wanted.
Yeah.
I think there's some I didn't want it when it happened. Not that, like, I take that back. Like, I want in the sense of back then, it's like, oh, any comic book thing I want on the screen there. But it's just the thing, if I have a list, hey, what do you want Marvel to make? It's not making the top 10, you know. It's.
If you could pick a character right now, what do you want Disney Marvel to make for the MCU?
It's always gonna probably be X-Men, you know. Like, I just want to see.
That's a cop out.
Well, then
pick one some small obscure character, like Condiment Man.
But do you mean like it okay? So it has to. Moon Knight.
Yeah,
that's a good pick.
But I don't think that works in like an MCU movie. I think that's a Netflix or like
TV
so.
Show.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
Luke Cage.
No, he got the TV series. He's
yeah, but like
Paramount
Luke Cage.
Yeah, like if I want a Daredevil movie just because I want Netflix's Daredevil to be bumping around with Spider-Man and Tom. You know, that's what I want more days now, because I know they're gonna make everything. Well, okay, this is what I want. I want a Howard the Duck movie too. Like that's because I know we're gonna get to that point. So
really,
let's just no. But I think he could be in a movie, like in a Guardian,
like a bigger role.
Yeah. So it's almost this thing, like, it feels great, but I don't need to think about what I want from Marvel, because I feel like if they keep going this way, we're just eventually gonna get it. It's just they're gonna keep, they're gonna keep churning it out. They're gonna make Black Panther the biggest Marvel movie of all time, and it was like a C, B-rate character. Like, Howard the Duck is gonna be huge for the duck community.
They're gonna shock us for the duck community.
Yeah.
There's a big community for that. Yeah. As for myself, I love this movie. I'm trying to think back. I think I did go see this movie in theaters. Obviously, I mean, I haven't really read the comic books, but still, this was the first set of characters that I hadn't heard of, or at least hadn't heard of them like once or twice or something like that. So, I guess I didn't really expect it, but I mean, I don't really think I thought too deeply about what the MCU was doing at that time anyway. But yeah, it is such a crazy out there idea, and I think you made a really good point, Taylor. Like, okay, how does this fit in with the Avengers? How is that going to cross over? And it's interesting to think about, because it really doesn't, like, from this movie, it really doesn't happen for quite a while. Like, we still have to wait quite some time. And eventually, I mean, I haven't seen Infinity War yet, so I don't know exactly how it ties all together. But yeah, it just seemed like super out there. But yeah, I've always loved this movie. Like, obviously the comedy from start to finish is, have you laughing the entire time. The soundtrack, whether it be like the awesome mix and like the songs they pick, really great choices of songs, but also like the original soundtrack. Like I love their theme, and there's some like emotional scenes that kind of have like the sort of symphony vibe, and they have like that subtle electronic sort of stuff under there, and it's just perfect.
I can't believe I actually forgot about the soundtrack.
You didn't mention
that. No, not at all. I guess it's just such a given now.
It's like established,
Yeah, but like at the time, especially too, it feels like I'm sorry, I'm kind of into a bit, but just the first instant the second prequel hits play and Guardians comes out like this cheesy 80 font, it feels completely different than this does kick, which I was talking about in the other retrospective. This feels like they kick off to. Maybe discounting Black Panther, but this feels like the kickoff to what the MCU's now, like where we are currently. Like you said, we haven't seen Infinity War. That seems pretty dire. I can't look at Dylan.
Well, we talked about Thor Ragnarok and how much influence it has from this movie. Essentially, you could say from Guardians 2 as well, but definitely from this one. But yeah, like the soundtrack is I would say, I feel like I said everything I had to say, but I don't know why I went back to it. But when I was watching this again, I was thinking about like how many characters they really introduce and like actually develop in this movie, and it's pretty astounding. Obviously Groot, he's a pretty simple character, so it doesn't take a whole lot, but still, like, just feeling connected to all these characters in one movie it's pretty out there, especially because they're kind of introducing, like you said, a whole new can of worms. Like there's a whole new world of characters, so they're doing that as well as developing all these characters. And I remember thinking when I first saw this, and like another couple times I've watched it, is like I felt a little bit. I didn't really love Drax a whole lot the first few times I saw it, and Nebula and Yondu, they're important, but I felt like they didn't really get a whole lot there. Like they were kind of basic, and honestly, I don't even really think that's a fair critique because of how much else they develop and how many other characters they introduce in this movie. But all of those what I don't really consider them problems, but those three characters I was feeling down on have completely switched places because of the second one now, and those characters all got the development that I think they deserve, and I know so much more about them that rewatching this movie again, like those being my only problems with the movie is now like vanished. So this movie to me is just like perfect. I love the visuals. I love how all the weird places they go to. I love how colorful it is. I kind of agree with you. The action scenes might not be nothing outstanding necessarily, but I still love them because I think the set pieces are really cool. Like Nowhere as a planet is just like a weird. I don't even know what it is. Nowhere, it's just some flying thing. I guess it's like a planet. Is it a planet?
Yeah, Nowhere's a planet.
It's like the giant skull place.
I don't know. It was the head of a celestial.
The head of a celestial. There you go.
Yeah, it's kind of. I guess it's a location. I don't know.
It's a location. But yeah, I love that place, and I love the fight scene in like the prison. I think that's such a cool set, and I love that first little fight scene on, I think it's on Xandar, just between the Guardians, because it's all of them just using like cheap tricks on each other to kind of get the upper hand instead of like an actual full on fight, and that's kind of seen all the way through the movie. Like even the ending fight with Ronan, who's like your villain of this movie. It's not really much of a fight. It's just like a couple little tricks on each other. And I think that is like a choice that they made, and I think it is like to its benefit. And I actually like that. I kind of get bored by a lot of action scenes these days, but these ones still stand up and are still interesting to me. And also it talks about. I guess this is kind of like the intro of Thanos. Really, you get to see him like in a scene. I think before this there's a post-credits scene or two maybe that had him, but this is the first time we get to see him like, I don't know, in an actual scene. Yeah. Ronan, who I like the villain as well. Originally I didn't think he was the greatest necessarily, but honestly rewatching it, I'm totally fine with what they chose to do with him in this movie, because I think the first scene with him like truly establishes him as being really badass. Like he's just in that like, I don't know, room, and his servants or whatever are like, dressing him up in his armor and putting the paint on his face. Like it's a really badass scene. And even though he might not have like the most amount of depth, I think obviously the movie focused on developing all these characters, introducing all these characters and their adventure. And I think him filling like the villain role of this movie, while it doesn't necessarily stand out as a villain on its own, I think within the movie it's like perfect what they chose to do with him. And obviously I think visually he looks great as well. So I love this movie. This is honestly rewatching it again for this cast, like I think it might be my favorite now that Guardians 2 exists and we're looking at it in retrospect. All of like the problems I have with it are now gone. I love this movie. It's phenomenal.
It'll be interesting when we do the rankings. So
it will be very interesting.
This is kind of a mixed bag. I don't know where to start, so I think I'm just going to start at the beginning. I'm going to start with good old Peter Quill. I think this is one thing that I think people are warranted, where I think Guardians 2 does put him in the back burner a bit, and I think that's fine, but he is the guide for this movie, and I think it's a great setup because the movie's very comedic, but the movie starts in a very dark way with his mom passing away of cancer, and she's there, and she looks very sick, like, very, very emotional, and that was something that hit me that the Winter Soldier has that scene with Peggy. Thor Dark World doesn't really have anything emotional. Iron Man 3, it doesn't. Iron Man 3, I don't know, I'd have to think hard, but like nothing has struck me that hard. Even in, I think, I'm trying to think of just other Marvel movies in general. I think that's maybe as emotional as you may get. Like the most maybe Iron Man scene.
Well, it catches you off guard too, right? Because it's right at the beginning.
So it starts off that way, and then we just get into this world, and I think it's a great setup. Chris Pratt is phenomenal. Like, this is one of the movies, like, along with this and Jurassic World, is why he's a mega star, because he just, the second that dance scene with the opening credits, he just grabs your attention. You just want to follow this guy. He's likable. His interactions with people, like, oh, they call him Star-Lord. And even when they go to the collectors, and I know lots of, has a bunch to do with writing, directing, James Gunn, phenomenal director. But just even little stuff when they go to the collector and he's like, what do you have? And he's like, we have this. And he takes it and he just like fumbles it like this. Like, he's just like the lovable loser, you know? Like, he's phenomenal. And when he does have to be emotional, and like obviously he gets a comedic part, but the emotional scenes, like when he sees his mom at the end with Gamora, he kills that. The stuff he has with Gamora, right when you think he's being like a really sensitive, emotional guy, he just turns around and he's like that.
So heroic.
Yeah, that like gross, like, douchey sort of guy that he's always been, and just with that alien in his thing, just like, I didn't know you're here. He's fantastic in this movie, and he's a good guy to have, and obviously it's good that, you know, he's a human and he's from our Earth, so I think that helps. I don't think you need that anymore. I think Star Wars or Marvel can do a movie where it could be an alien as a main character or someone not from Earth, but I think just for getting into space and Marvel for the first time, it helped it being like,
because Asgard doesn't really ever feel. I don't know. I think I've always been disappointed by Asgard and how they use it in the movies. It doesn't really feel like that different of a place. Obviously, you know, the giant bridge and shit. Like, there is some crazy space stuff going on, but yeah, obviously this is really when it kicks it up a whole bunch of notches, and we're really seeing like those Star Wars sorts of scenes where they're in, you know, like that little casino or whatever, and they're just playing these weird games that don't make any sense, and there's just aliens everywhere and stuff like that. And yeah, I think Peter Quill, like that intro, it is so perfect, and I think it, you know, establishes that, I guess you don't know it at the time, but this is like his only family. Like his dad left when he was, you know, I guess before he even knew him, right? Is that true?
Yeah, he never met his dad.
Never met him, yeah. And then, obviously the importance of like the music to him, and that's something that really speaks to me strongly, and always having like, he always has a song for like a certain mood or what's going on, and how he just like presumably has listened to this one set of songs, you know, his whole life, but how he, you know, still gets enjoyment out of those songs, and how it brings him back to Earth, or it brings him back to, you know, remembering his mother, and that was like her, you know, final gift to him, I guess. So I think all that is really good. And, you know, the music as well, obviously they kind of established in that first scene when he's in that place looking for the orb, is that, you know, the music is obviously not the soundtrack stuff, but like the, you know, the awesome mix, that stuff is to the characters as well. It's not just as a viewer, and that's something that obviously not many movies tackle, but it's well done in this movie, and that the music will kick in, like, you know, when they go to the prison, and then the music starts as soon as like the guard like puts those little headphones on, he starts listening to them.
Yeah.
And I like those little details, and it's, I don't know, it really makes the movie feel like more immersive, because you can kind of understand what they're, you know, listening to, or like it really sets the whole environment, I guess, around them. So I don't know, I'm just kind of going off. I love this movie.
I think this intro has got to be one of my favorite intros of all time for a movie. I honestly, when I watched it earlier this week, it just, when it starts off, like, it's very sad and very deep when like Chris Pratt or Star-Lord like just has to go through that moment with his mom dying. But then I think that once it transitions to being, it continues that serious trend and keeps the flow, and it's him exploring this planet, and it's just, the weather is all brutal and everything, and he's got his mask with the eyes going, it looks so badass. I love his Ravager garb. I've wanted to actually piece together that costume for a cosplay actually for a while.
You should do it, man.
It is so sick, and all of a sudden when he goes into the temple and it's just quiet and he clicks his tape on and it's the great song that pops in and he rolls with it and he's just moving just like you were saying. It's just so easy to just get sucked in right away to this character, and it's again like this is how I don't remember another movie that was able to pull something off like this or have such a unique way of introducing itself and a character, and I absolutely love it. I could rewatch that scene multiple times over again on YouTube. I probably will tonight. I think that what it leads into too, how we get to see more of his character, and when we get to see like Ronan's goons approach him or whatever, I think it's fantastic. He's just, I guess this is kind of leading into Star-Lord as a character. I guess he's not a character like I've really seen or recognized in any other kind of like movie. I guess like as kind of like that lovable, quirky kind of just idiot like you were saying, and I think that's fantastic how Chris Pratt, like there's certain actors and certain things like, you know, they don't always land or pull off the kind of, they don't grab the role by the neck and like embrace it like Ben Affleck did in Justice League, but you know thank God Chris Pratt just like, it feels like it's an extension of who Chris Pratt is, you know. It's like this, he was born to be Star-Lord at some point. And
I think, you know, one thing that's really interesting about him is that he obviously is like a smart guy, but that it sometimes feels like it takes him a bit to, you know, truly think a situation fully through. And I feel like they convey that like multiple times in this movie. And I think, you know, the thing that really sets him apart from the rest of them, the rest of the Guardians at the beginning, is that he has like the emotional component, right? And he sees them as like people as opposed to just like adversaries and stuff like that. So I think that's, you know, obviously one reason why they all kind of decided to band together in the end and continue forward as Guardians of the Galaxy is because of the way he looks at them as people, you know, as I guess friends or as a team. And yeah, I love those things. And sometimes it kind of takes him to a point where he's doing something that isn't so smart. Like there's that scene when Rocket and, kind of jumping forward, but Rocket and Drax are like fighting after they've had too much to drink, and the way he just like comes in there and kind of settles them down and kind of connects to both of them on like a personal level. But then at the same time, what I like about that scene is that he like right there in front of all those people, you know, mentions to Rocket like, think about all the money on the line, or like, you know, how we're 4 million units or something. Like that's not a smart thing for him to say in that situation. All these people around, but it totally fits the character and like that kind of thing is consistent throughout the whole movie, where he was just like, he totally zoned everyone out, was just focusing on Rocket as like a person, even though he's a little raccoon creature anyway. So yeah, I think Chris Pratt, obviously, like you guys said, just nails that perfectly. And yeah, all those like the hand motions and stuff like that, like a very, you know, physical actor in that sense. The mannerisms are all there.
hand motions, yeah.
Hand motions.
I guess, leading into what, like Rocket? So you brought him up?
Yeah.
Be a good lead on.
Let's lead wherever you want, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think Rocket has got to be easily. He's. It's hard for me to like one character so much more over another in this movie, because I feel like they focused on like Chris Pratt's character a little bit more over the others, but at the end of the day, they all were fleshed out so well. And Rocket, I love how Chris Pratt like will drop a few lines like, oh, he's just a raccoon or whatever, and he's like, what's a raccoon? Like, it makes me wonder if Rocket was taken, like where his story is. I don't know if they cover it in the comics, but if he was taken from Earth and engineered from there,
in a few different ways,
or
yeah.
if he's taken from like another planet that has raccoons, but
Raccoon Planet.
Raccoon Planet. He
Squirrel Girl.
I think Bradley Cooper was just fantastic as Rocket.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
his voice fits so well with the character. I mean, it's just he lives and breathes that role so easily, and
I kind of forget it's Bradley Cooper. So.
I do too. It goes over my head sometimes. I mean, I'm not as fast as Drax, but
Nice.
I think yes, he's just a voice actor, but at the end of the day, I feel like the way he can portray his voice and those that emotion in that voice to actually bounce off of a character that only has 3 lines throughout the movie is fantastic. I mean, when you're just told like, okay, respond to this, I am Groot. And he's like, yes, of course, you idiot. Like, he's able to, it's amazing. I wonder, like, if when they read off the line, I am Groot, if they're actually saying, okay, well, Groot's actually saying, like, he's saying, like, respond to this. Groot's actually saying, I don't want to go there. And then Bradley Cooper will be like, yes, that's maybe how he gets more of that emphasis behind
Well, that's actually something, that's a really important thing with this movie is obviously 2 of your main squad are completely CGI characters. And obviously, if that's done poorly, then it's really noticeable and probably takes you out of the experience. And the fact that even though Bradley Cooper has a great voice, if the visuals weren't there to match up with it, it would just be jarring, right? But I think they really, really nailed the look of those 2 characters. They look great. They fit in. I think it's a testament to everyone involved. Like, the writing between the characters makes sense, and all the acting between, like, Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, like the way, I mean, I don't know if they had like someone in those spot reading the lines for them to act those parts out, or I don't know how they did it, but it always feels like they're interacting with, something that's actually there and that it feels genuine.
Yeah.
I think that's something that they had to get right, and they truly did, for sure.
Yeah, Rocket again, like I said that earlier, but he was a big risk. I think obviously Bradley Cooper, that's a good thing that he did that, but it was still a risk to, like, you got to make this believable. I think he feels real, like you're talking about, but just his character and his personality feels real. I wrote down the line, but I love when he, like, shoots Peter with that rock, and he's like, yeah, arrive, little man. Like, he has just such this unique personality, and something that I feel like we've kind of all met somebody like a Rocket, this person that just always says this offensive stuff. Yeah, a little skeevy.
Kind of like a raccoon.
Yeah, just like cuts to the bone with his comments, everything like that, and very sarcastic. I love the line when he's laughing. He's like, that's not a real laugh. Like, it's real. Like, he's just in your face, like Smash Mouth. It's not the band, just it's just an expression. But
Taylor's favorite band?
Yeah, I think, and I think that would have been good. But what makes him great is those scenes about when he gets in the fight with Drax, or the bar scene, or when he gets upset, or just little stuff like when Peter Quill is in the prison and he sees him taking his clothes off and he has all those things back, and you feel for him, and you kind of go, oh, well, he kind of gets
the
to be
look on Chris Pratt's face, too.
Yeah, he kind of gets to be a little asshole because, like, obviously he's had a tough life, so, and I think they do a good job of that, and they do that in 2, but they did just show that he is trying his very best, but that's not always it doesn't always go down right with Rocket, because he doesn't necessarily know how to do things the right way, because he's not right in a sense, right? Like, yeah, it's great he's walking around talking, but in a sense, like, he had all these experiments done on him that we assume in these movies, so clearly you're gonna be a little messed up.
I like that one scene with him in the ship too, and Chris Pratt's like, "Are you taking apart my ship?" He's like, He's like, what is this? He's like, don't touch that, it's a bomb. He's like, what? You got a bomb my ship? Like, he's in his own world, chill. Just building things.
I was gonna put it in a box.
Yeah. What about this
What's
one?
What's a box gonna do?
Yeah, he's good.
Drax, Dylan, I'll start with you because you are notorious. I forgot about.
I don't know if I'd say I was a hater.
You weren't a hater, but you weren't the biggest fan. I remember you brought that up a lot when the Guardians 2 trailers were happening. And you're like, oh, you weren't sure about Drax, even though I think you're like his lines and that. What about in this movie? Obviously, take your Guardians 2 out because that happened. But at the time, what was it that you weren't on the Drax?
Man, I really wish I could tap into my brain from a few years ago, because every single line he has in this movie was making me laugh when I was watching it again yesterday. So I don't know what it was about him that initially had me not into the character. Maybe it was that he felt a little one-dimensional. I mean, he does obviously kind of mention a couple of times his family, and I think they do kind of flesh that out enough that they needed to in this movie. Like, he talks about it, and that obviously is enough reason for him to want to just kill Gamora, even though he doesn't know anything about her other than she might be tied to Ronan in some way at when they first arrive at the prison, right? And obviously he goes to pretty far lengths just to kill Ronan. So obviously that drive inside of him, that anger is kind of omnipresent. It's throughout the whole movie. So honestly, every single thing he says is hilarious. I think I wrote down 100 quotes of his. Every single line of his, probably. Quotes. So I'll read some out later. But yeah, I don't know what it is that I didn't like about him at first. Maybe I think the second movie obviously does add to his character because he does get more depth, and I think the second movie, his connections with Mantis really improve like that character as a whole. I think it helps convey things that he as a character wouldn't normally convey or is unable to convey on his own just because he talks like a thesaurus, sometimes. But yeah, man, I love him now. I'm a big fan of Drax now.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
I will say that I like his humor, and I gotta watch Guardians 2 with this back-to-back. I do like his humor a bit more in this one. I think I do understand people's criticisms with Guardians 2, where in this one it is much more he's not getting the joke sometimes, or he's very naive. Where in Guardians 2, or I think I said that, but in Guardians 1 he's like that. Where in Guardians 2, it does feel it's a bit more potty humor, a bit more kind of bully humor because he makes fun of Mantis and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I will say that actually, where I still love Drax, and I thought Drax was phenomenal in Guardians 2, but I do prefer this Drax, and I think I do like that he's a little bit more hard-edged in this one. He's more scary when Guardians 2. I don't think he's that scary. I think he's just a big lovable loser.
One aspect of that is
lovable
he doesn't
big guy now.
have like any fight scenes in the second movie.
Yeah, true. I just feel like even the way, and I guess the problem is we don't see him around many strangers. So the thing is, like in this movie, obviously all the Guardians are strangers to one another. Then he has people in the bar. So like even that moment when someone, Sean Gunn, James Gunn's director's brother, I can't remember his actual name. He's in Guardians 2.
Remember his character.
Yeah, but at one moment he just does like this to Drax, like a shoulder
little
bump,
fist bump,
yeah.
and then he's just like Drax like that. Like we don't get any of those moments in Guardians 2 because he knows everyone, right? So
Yeah.
he doesn't really have a reason to be scary. So I kind of hope they do that in Infinity War with like Avengers or people they might meet. So that's the thing with Guardians 2 that's why I defend it. It's a very different movie, but that's why there is stuff that I pick and choose of as far as what I like, and I like Drax being a bit more animalistic in a sense in this one, where in the second one he's a bit more cheerful, and maybe he should be because he's with his family, but I do like seeing him like that in this movie, and his humor, I laugh at everything he says in this movie.
It's a symbol for you slicing his throat. I would not slice his throat, I would cut it clean off.
And like when he's saying that stuff about Gamora, like this green whore, and then Nebula just calls her like a jerk or something, and he's like, no one speaks bad about my friends, and he like shoots her with the cannon, or like reverse. So yeah, it's everything Drax says and does in this, and they give him good motivation too of he wants revenge for his family, right? And I hope that does come back in Infinity War, because I feel like because Guardians 2 wasn't his story, so that's a little lost. I feel like they kind of had to shelf that because they know, well, Thanos is coming. Like, he ends this movie by saying, oh, I'm going to get Thanos.
Yeah.
And that's the only hampering problem with something like sequels, where in a regular movie, if it's just like old school, Thanos is probably the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, right? And it's like, oh, we're going to get Thanos. But it's like, well, we kind of have to wait. So I feel like that's why another thing, his development in 2 is kind of put on hold, but the development in this is great.
That's a good point, yeah.
And I think, honestly, Rowan's best scenes are the ones he has with Drax, because he just feels like the biggest scum ever. Like, the way he talks about his family.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't remember killing your family. And they're like, I do remember. And, like, it's just like, which is kind of strange in, like, a day. Yeah, but, like, that's when I feel like he's the scariest and the most intense Rowan. And also we'll get to him later. But that's, those scenes that they had together I really liked.
Well, you brought up something there that I want to mention. I love how, like, the story reasons between all of them kind of coming together in the first place. You know, it starts out with Peter Quill going to recover that orb because he wants to sell it to I can't remember that guy's name.
Collector?
No, he doesn't sell it to the collector.
Broker.
The broker, that's the one, yeah. And then obviously Gamora hears of that through Ronan, and so she's getting sent after Quill. And then Rocket is just a bounty hunter, so he sees that Peter has a bounty hunter, so he goes after him. And then, you know, they all get sent to the prison, and then for Drax to want to go after Gamora because of her relation to Ronan and his family. And then for all of them want to stick together because, well, they all want to split the profit, and then, you know, Gamora knows where to sell this. Rocket is the one who can get them out of prison, and then Drax just wants to go with them to kill Ronan. Like, it's all there. Like, nothing feels like half-assed. Like, all the characters make sense. I mean, if you really want to break it down, you could say, like, oh, it's kind of coincidental that like Rocket's just there chilling on Xandar when they're all there, but I don't know. Everything to me felt like really purposeful watching it through again and like trying to be as critical and look at like everything, like why exactly did they all team up? And I think it is all there. Like they really cover all the bases in that sense. Yeah. I didn't really lead you in anything. That's my bad.
I feel
bad podcast.
Did you start off the Drax conversation?
I just kind of going off on tangents because you know there's a lot to talk about. Let's talk about Gamora then. I love the look of Gamora. I think you know her weird like I don't know whatever those things are around her eyes, just like her I don't know what to call them. but and her hair and like her badass fighting style, like that's the scene in Xandar, like how her and Peter have like that little squabble when they're like both lying next to each other, and she just like fucking kicks him in the head, like that's super sick. And then when she just destroys Groot with her sword, like she goes in on him, chops off both his arms, just stabs him right in the chest. So I think Gamora is great, and I love her setup and her story with, because Nebula kind of doesn't, she's just kind of like really evil, and the only real reason you have is that like Thanos likes Gamora more, and it's like it's not like a fantastic reason, but at least Gamora has like a solid story behind her too, so it kind of ups the performance of Nebula, and I think in the end it makes it so those two characters have like that solid fight scene in like that ending segment of the movie, and that's really fun. I love Gamora's reason for turning against Thanos and Ronan, and that she kind of never really felt like she was part of them. And honestly, I'm kind of curious more of like that backstory. I'd like to hear more of that, but obviously
Of those three?
well, yeah, just like
I think you will on Infinity.
Yeah, in the trailer it shows that.
yeah, like, I'm curious to see that, because as of right now, I guess what we get is that Thanos like killed her family in her home world, and it says in her little bio that she's the last of her race. So Mohican, yeah. So he killed every single person she would ever have known, and then just kind of tortured her. And
we don't know
made
that.
her into a
Don't
weapon.
assume. You don't know that he killed. He could be a misunderstood guy.
Could be, yeah.
Because really, if
Who am I to assume?
there's some Sokovian that's like, oh, Tony Stark killed all my family.
Mm-hmm.
Ultron. You don't know. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the
Zemo.
way, but Zemo. Yeah.
That was
There you go.
Zemo's.
That was Zemo. He was Gamora. He was the last Zemo. Who have we not talked about? Well, I guess we talked about Gamora. Yeah, she's great in this movie. Yeah, they're all great. Like I can keep saying that about them, but they do a good thing with her is you don't really know where she's coming from until about the prison, when she reveals about like, obviously if you've read the comics you know about, okay, she's Thanos' daughter. She's not the same way as Thanos, but in the movie they played a good way of, she's very quiet for a while, she just wants this orb. Does she want it for Ronan? Does she want it for herself? She's kind of like a wild card in this movie for quite a while. I think she has maybe some of the best action moments as far as just her fighting.
Yeah.
I think her, and I guess I didn't even talk about this with Star-Lord, but I think her and Peter have great chemistry together. I'm excited for Guardians 3 now because they'll be like an actual couple, but like this was like a good kind of introducing them. 2 was a good like back and forth between the two. Hopefully with 3 of them as actual love interests can prevail and not get cheesy or not feel like it's bogging down the plot. But the good thing is most of the time it feels like she has a story going on, or she's vital to the story already, and not, oh, you're vital to the story like Pepper because you're the love interest, right? So I think I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, obviously she's had like so much development now that it probably won't feel that way.
I love their dance scene. I love that. It starts off very romantic, but then it switches very quickly to become very violent and very scary as she has a knife up to Peter, and she's just trying not to be one of the girls on his notches of the belt, something like that. Yeah, so that's good. This is just talking about lines. I love when they crash the ship and she's just like, we're just like Kevin Bacon. Like, she has this, she's not the same as Drax, but she definitely has like an
she has the least amount of jokes, right?
Yeah, like a naivety about her? Naivety?
Naive? Is that what you're going for?
With T.I. at the end of it. Naivety? She's just very, now I even forgot just the word what I'm trying to say.
You're going past my vocabulary.
What was I trying to say? Tell me, I forgot the word. No.
Naive?
Yeah, she's just very naive, because it feels like in the world that she grew up with Thanos and Nebula, and we get some backstory in Guardians 2 about how he used to make them fight each other and everything like that, but it feels like she grew up in a world where there wasn't much humor or good times or jokes, and that's where I think for her it's like a fish out of the water, because obviously...
What if Thanos actually is super quick in Infinity War? He's just like killing heroes left and right, just making jokes about their stupid costumes and stuff.
Yikes, that'd be a tough watch. That'd be really tough.
Because it'd be so sad, but it'd be like intentionally funny. It would be very confusing. I'd be very conflicted.
I want a DVD version of that. I don't want the theater version of that. I think, maybe if they 40th anniversary special, they'll remake
40?
Yeah.
Wow.
But, so she is good as far as, like I said, that fish out of water. She feels like she just has, and she feels the most focused out of all of them. Quill is just trying to make some money. Drax Drax is focused, but Drax is just such a loose cannon. You don't really know what he's gonna do. When we meet him later on, she just feels like, I gotta get this orb, and I gotta keep it away from Thanos. Like she's the one that's really the least selfish out of them all because it's for the world, right? Obviously, Peter makes that sacrifice. Then they all make that sacrifice, but all of them are doing it for their individual reasons. Where she's doing it for a grander one.
Yeah, and her motivation for that always, it seemed to be like an instant thing. You know, it was just like part of her personality that she wanted to, you know, do well with or get rid of this stone because she knows of its power. And now that they've seen it, because that one girl in the collector's thing put her hand on it and just like completely abolished the place. Like she immediately just wanted to get this thing into, you know, out of harm's way. Whereas Peter was like, you know, like he says in the movie, he's kind of in between Rocket and her. He's still, you know, he wants to get it out of the bad guy's hands, but he's still, you know, can make some money off it, and that's what he'd like to do. But yeah, I think it's cool, interesting that that Gamora like instantly just wants to do the right thing.
You know, I'm just gonna shut it back a little bit because I missed the chance.
Shut it back.
Drax, love him. He's hilarious. I missed that train. You switched right to Gamora, so I was like,
Okay.
Well, finish on Gamora. You have anything to say about Gamora?
No, I'm done with Drax. I'm going to Gamora full time here. So Gamora was literally, she was definitely like an innocent, and you could definitely feel how much pain she carried on her shoulders throughout this movie. Just it felt like, you know, revenge definitely was Drax's thing, but in this case, it felt like her revenge was so much more heavier than what Drax had, because I feel like out of both of them, their motives were revenge. And well, I mean, I guess I liked with Gamora in the sense that she just wanted out. She wanted her revenge, but she wanted out. She wanted to get out of this whole life that she had that was taken from her. And I really like that that they displayed that for her, and how well they emphasized that this was her one chance to get out. And that I like knowing too that this was the moment she was waiting for, because at some point she formulated this plot that this is what she wanted to do, and this was her time to get out. And she knew what the orb was, the fact that it was Infinity Stone. And you say she wanted to keep it away from Thanos. Did she?
I feel like I feel like I didn't make an assumption. I feel like that's a clear statement in the movie.
Well, near the end, but at first I felt like, you know, did she assume the Collector would be powerful enough and wise enough to keep it away from Thanos?
Well, I don't think she necessarily knew its just full destructive power. I think seeing that girl put her hand on it and it just destroy the whole place was like an eye opener for her. I think she knew it was dangerous.
And Collector explains, he gives
that exposition. Yeah.
I think she just wanted to put it somewhere that might not. I think honestly, she does Yeah, okay, from the standpoint of saving the world, I think putting it there because, like, she's probably worried eventually she's going to get tracked down, right? Because if she's turned her back on Thanos, Thanos is going to get her. She doesn't want to have that stone with her. The Collector maybe is somebody that is just so offshoot and so, like, in the middle of nowhere, waka waka, that, like, maybe Thanos won't seem to check that, you know? And two, she probably needs a little income if she's going to try to run away from Thanos or survive, right? So I think it's kind of a two for, like, how can I do this? I think at the end of the day she's doing it to save the world, but she also just can't go anywhere. Like, she can in a sense, but she's living on borrowed time, right? People are looking for her, so she has to just put it somewhere where it could be out of reach, at least for a little bit, you know? And that's where I think the Collector kind of works. Yes, I don't know if it's the best, maybe it's just the best option. The guy is named the Collector, so it is, I feel like he would kind of be like, oh, let's definitely check that out. So maybe it's more of a plot device and just to set the Collector for Infinity War, because honestly I think that's where Thanos is going to get one of those stones. He's going to pop down and fuck that shop up and take one of those stones. Yeah, and hopefully Jeff Goldblum's his brother. Talk about the Collector quickly. I very much want to see those two together in a scene, because they are brothers, the Grandmaster and the Collector.
Right.
And I very hope that happens. I don't know if it's Infinity War or Thor Ragnarok 2, because I'm just calling it that. Because I think the Ragnarok...
They're like, we like this branding idea.
Yeah, I feel like Ragnarok's completely different than the other Thors. So, like, I don't know when, but it has to happen at some point.
Yeah, I really want to see that. I think he's has a great look. I love when they all walk in there and he just gets distracted like instantly because he sees Groot and he's like, oh, I want this guy in my collection of weird beings. So I thought that was a nice little detail. I think, you know, the fact that he kind of explains all about that stone is a little bit cheesy. It's like exposition, which doesn't really fit. But because it's so important to this whole universe and not just this selective movie, I'm okay with it as a viewer. Like now, because that's really the first time that me, as the non-comic book fan, gets to know really what these things are, what they are, instead of just they're a power source that's
and they
really
refer to
strong.
it as Infinity Stones, I think,
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah, you're probably
in this
right.
one. I imagine, like, obviously there's insinuations, and I agree. I think it's the Infinity Stones are the only time I like give a pass for exposition, because it's also usually like cool exposition.
Like Rocket's right now. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but yeah. Well, there is Groot, but like, you know,
I think Vin Diesel is fantastic.
I think he's good.
I still don't understand, like, obviously it's to have the name, like,
It's to have
Vin
the name.
Diesel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's good at that, you know. Iron Giant, Vin Diesel's he's perfect for
I feel
these
like
kinds
maybe
of
he
roles.
could have done like a cooler or better role, perhaps, like something that requires
There
more
was
of him.
rumors that
Because what does he even do for this? Really, does he do?
He says I'm Groot, and he says it
He doesn't do like any mocap, right?
There were rumors at one point. So that great show that Marvel produced called The Inhumans. I've never seen a single episode. But apparently
yes.
it was awful. At one point there was supposed to be a movie, and I don't know if it was rumor because Vin had said it, or he was just trying to get it out there. But at one point it was strongly considered, or there was a rumor that was pretty strong, that he was going to be playing Black Bolt, who Black Bolt's character couldn't speak. So that was kind of the reverse, where he was the leader of the humans, but he couldn't speak. So you have his voice as Groot, and you have him being this hero who, if he speaks, he destroys cities.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. Once Kevin Feige got control, he's like, I don't really want it in humans.
I mean,
so apparently, but apparently, if you believe rumors, there was a plan to give him a bigger role, and this was like a twofer sort of deal. And then because they could use his name, Vin Diesel, right? As this, like, well, you don't know, your mom doesn't know he's just gonna say I'm Groot. She's just gonna be like, oh man, Vin Diesel's playing a tree. I know him. That could be funny, you know. And it doesn't really.
Well, I don't even think the character with no voice thing has much weight, because it doesn't really sound like Vin Diesel anyway when he says I am Groot.
No.
Because there's so many effects on there anyway.
Yeah.
So obviously they could cast him as something else, and I wouldn't be like triggered or anything. Obviously, if they put Robert Downey as like Squirrel Girl, I'd be like, that's pretty
Dr.
fucking
Doom.
weird.
They just, and with Groot as a character, I really like. Obviously, he's like this movie's Chewbacca. He's just such an aloof, but then when he needs to be serious, he is when he's a badass. But I just love moments like that's why I love this movie, because it's little things like when Rocket's talking, and then in the background you just see him like eating branches off himself,
Yeah.
or just like
That scene when he like gives that little girl that flower.
yeah, like he's just this lovable hunk of wood, you know. And you do feel the first time when he dies, I did feel sad. Obviously, he comes back to life, which the director's now clarified that I guess Groot is dead, and that Groot in Groot 2 is Groot's son. That's what he says, and I never took it that way. I took it as Groot was reincarnated. So I guess technically Groot Senior does die in this movie. And
Wow.
Groot Jr. Yeah,
That's
did you
so
not
sad.
know that? Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna go cry quick.
That was confirmed. Yeah, a couple at the time of this recording, like a month or two ago. There's a big debate because even some people online were quoting his tweet and still saying he's
I'm
wrong.
gonna
Still
say
saying
it's
the director's
ambiguous, and you can choose what you want.
See,
and I'm
but
gonna
that-
pick that.
See, that's what some people say, but then people are like, but the director said that is what happened.
Director Schmschmechter. Unless Kevin Feige says it, then I'm not gonna believe anything.
But they give this tree enough character that you believe that sacrifice when it happens. When he says, we are Groot, with the, like you point out, the little girl with his relationship with Rocket, even the way he kind of takes to...
I love the visuals of that scene when he builds
so good,
builds that ball.
Even the way when he takes the Peter Quill when everyone else is kind of like not on his side for doing this mission, and also you don't know what he's saying, but he's just like, yeah, Groot's right, and like the Rocket's like, no, like you're 27%, like that's not that high or whatever. Like they make, and that's why this movie's so special. But they made a tree a full-fledged character, you know, and it's something that is very tough to do. There's many movies out
That
there.
tree is better than a lot, if not all, the DC characters. You know?
Wow, he's going down that route. But it is
So
very
sorry.
hard to do. That's the reason why I compare him to Chewbacca, because I think the list of characters that are those animals that don't speak, that actually have a big impact on the story and become real, like feel like real life
They
characters.
have a personality.
Yeah, they're few and far in between. I feel like many people try that, but then they just become comedic relief, or they just become cool and badass. Like, I feel like it's really hard to get that character who doesn't speak. I'm not counting Groot as a speaking character, so and give him emotions that a Peter Quill has. So Groot, phenomenal.
Yeah, I think, that's a testament to how well they, like, Rocket and Groot bounce off each other, and I'm sure that's obviously all over the comics, so they had a lot to draw from in that sense. But that just goes to show, like, how, okay, the character that's really developing Groot up is another CGI character, so really, like, props to them. But also, like, there is that scene, it's the scene where the Guardians are all together right before they go in for the final battle, and they're all just, like, discussing the plan. And, yeah, just the way, like, even Chris Pratt is interacting with Groot, like, really, I don't know, it's like like sympathizing with each other, and yeah, once again, like I don't know, just the way Chris Pratt can interact with a CGI tree, and like it makes sense as like two characters interacting is. It's really like it's worthy of praise. Like that's not too often that you see that.
Yeah.
I love the scene too near the end with when they're like in some dark room and then Groot just like summons all these glow fly things.
The score sound
The
effects.
sound is so good.
Yeah.
It's like that. That's what I was talking about. Where it's like that kind of symphonic, emotional sort of stuff, but there's like electronics kind of stuff that really ties it into like the 80s, 70s music throughout the movie. So. Groot. You're the biggest Groot fan of all time, Taylor.
Wow.
Really?
Isn't that true?
Yeah, I don't know about all time. That is a very hard thing to take credit for, but I'm flattered you think so. That means a lot to me.
Of all the people I know, I would say.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
I know a few people.
Yeah, I really do love Groot. I mean, he's just as a character, he's so there's nothing you don't like about him. He's just so he's displayed in a perfect way that a tree could be displayed if a tree was alive. And I think, again, like it's so much of his character is developed and flourished based off of how he bounces off of everyone else. And that being said, like even though he's just saying, I am Groot, you can still tell what he means, not only because of the responses of other people, but the actual look of like his, yes it is CGI, but the look of and his expressions and how he acts as he's saying I am Groot, it's the body emotions that speak so many levels too, as like I guess because it's Vin Diesel like mocapping, right? As
I don't think so. No, he just does the.
I would be surprised if he does, just because of how wonky and proportion.
Yeah, and Bradley Cooper doesn't do Rocket.
No,
so
I know that. Yeah,
that would be.
I'll clarify 100%, but I'm pretty certain he just does voice. Like I know one time they did some photos of Vin Diesel on stilts, but I think that was just for like a fun. Oh, he's Groot. Like I don't think he's actually. Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's a very cool character. There's nothing like him, and I don't think I ever heard like there's a moment in the theater where people weren't laughing when Groot was doing his
that scene in the prison when the camera angle here is perfect when Rocket is explaining to Gamora and Star-Lord what the plan is for them to break out of prison, and then Drax is in the background. He's just kind of like silently watching Groot as he walks over, reaches up and grabs that battery right as Rocket says, that's definitely the thing you want to grab last. So
yeah, absolutely.
No, he didn't do that. He wore stilts for when he was doing the voice so he could get in a character.
Okay.
True actor right there.
Yeah, true thespian.
So that's Rocket, Groot.
Ronan.
I was just gonna say something on Groot.
Okay.
But I can't remember.
Groot.
We are Groot.
What was it? It was really important on Groot. You guys go. I can't remember.
Do you want us to stay on Groot?
No. Well, what else is there to say on Groot? Well, actually, one thing. So that in that prison fight scene as well, like when they go into like that watchtower, Groot just like takes the guy and slingshots him out.
So good.
Yeah, that's pretty badass. I like
that scene leading up to that where Drax gets the weapons and throws it to Rocket, and the score there is fantastic. It's like do 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 do, and it's just like oh yeah, and then Groot's like roaring and pulling up these wooden shields and Rocket shooting. That is fantastic for a scene.
Big shout out to that prison scene too. That's a scene. If we were doing the Golden Geeks, that would be a nominee for best scene of the year because so much good stuff happens in that scene when they're talking about what they're gonna do with the plan, and like you said, like get that battery, and then you just see in the back, Drax is like
that guy's leg.
Yeah, Drax is kind of being introduced, and it's great because they just kind of show him in the background doing something. He just kind of ends up joining them, and then I guess it doesn't count exactly, but the whole throw it over the night thing is still fantastic. The first time I saw that, I just
died laughing.
Yeah, died laughing. The leg scene, everything about the prison scene is great, and just in that moment of when he is shooting on Groot's shoulder and they just like pan around and Rocket just like losing his mind. It's really well done. They did like
and the whole plan is cool too. Like kicking out the gravity and then bringing all those little drone things to bind together as like propulsion.
And I do wonder if that's what for some people with Guardians 2, if that's what people miss, because I do remember when that prison scene started. It's so cool where they're all just walking together and everyone's just like looking around them and they feel like it's them against the world. Where they verse a planet in Guardians 2, but you lose that because there's no other strangers really around, right? So it kind of feels like that scene feels almost a mini version, like a PG Tarantino-esque at times to me, where they just these characters bouncing off one another, and then the action kicks in. So yeah, did you figure out what?
I do remember. So at one point, because I like to pause whenever those like bios come up, and I was reading. I like to read all the things in there, and one of the things it says for Peter Quill is that he has that thing in his neck is a translator. That's what that thing is. So that's obviously what allows him to talk with all these aliens. Why can he not translate what Groot is saying? Is that because it's like it has like a database of certain things that it says, or is that because I guess it would have to be.
I think because it's so rare, and they also say it's like when Groot is kind of last of his kind, right, as well as Gamora. So it's this thing.
I know, but still, like if it was like a truly authentic translator, which you would think the technology here is pretty advanced that it can just like decipher what anything or anyone is saying.
But I think it's the fact that like he's speaking English, and I think Rocket just knows what he's talking about.
That's what's been debated. I don't think he is speaking English. I think he's maybe, but yeah, it's tough because then is Rocket actually speaking English though?
I would say so because like
I think
Groot's saying because he goes from saying I to we, so he obviously.
But is that their
English.
version? My thing is in Avengers when they first meet the Guardians, all the Guardians should be talking a different language.
Why do you say that?
Because they all, I'm pretty sure if you look at Guardians 2, they all have that. Like, they all have that thing, translator. So, technically, yeah, they're all speaking English because Peter Quill's our main character, and that's the movie, it's in America. Yeah. But, technically, Gamora, Drax, Groot, and Rocket, and Peter Quill are all speaking different languages to each other. So, I take that as if Iron Man drops down, doesn't have that translator, they should have... So, that's how I
mean, there's always that in movies like this where you kind of have to suspend your disbelief.
Star Wars,
so that it makes so the characters can like interact without always having to have. And well, actually, that's a big question because Drax, like a lot of his humor and like the stuff of being literal.
Yeah.
You would think if that's like different languages, that like those jokes really wouldn't make like any sense, and like those conversations wouldn't work. So I would think Drax is speaking like obviously not fully American English. He has like a different cultural background, but I would still think he's speaking English.
Yeah.
That's how I've pictured it. That's what makes sense to me.
Well,
big questions.
We'll never know. Yeah,
big questions.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing about those bios too that I liked is that it says that Gamora has like an enhanced respiratory thing, or whatever, which is cool because that ends up coming up later, and that's how she kind of survived out in like space for even like a couple minutes more than. Yeah. And Rocket mentions that too, but I like that little detail is in there as well.
Is that because it was like her people have that, like her species, or was it one of Thanos'?
I'm thinking it was. I think it was Thanos making her into that death machine by giving her, because like her bio is stacked full of all these enhancements that she has. So
it's his favorite daughter.
It's got seriously. Nebula is just some gross robot. You know?
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
And speaking on Nebula, I don't have much to add on her. I think Nebula for me in this movie is all right, but Guardians 2 is where I can watch this now and enjoy it more. But I think she's pretty one note. She just wants to get Gamora, then she wants to get Thanos, and then she just disappears. So I think the performance is all right, but it's I think she's just fine in this movie, Nebula. She serves the purpose.
Yeah. I can't really debate you on that just because there isn't a whole lot to go off of. But it's a character that I still enjoyed in the first movie, just based on like her look or I guess her backstory or something. And I wanted more in the second, and so I was pretty happy when we finally got that. I like that scene too after Drax blows her up. How when Gamora walks over to her and like her body is just like all cybernetic and it's like reconnecting, like her jaw like snaps back into place. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and I really liked. I did mention it, but I really like her fight scene. Nebula and Gamora's fight scene at the end. Obviously, it's because there's history there, but it is just a fun fight scene as well, and it shows how. Obviously, Gamora's kind of like the strongest one so far, it feels like, and the fact that Nebula's keeping up with her is testament to both of their prowess on the battlefield.
Nebula just bores me. I don't like her as a character. I find
fair enough.
I can't. Like, there's not a whole lot I can say.
You guys were very positive with what you had. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I think we were a good amount.
Opinion.
Even in Guardians 2, I just found her boring.
Wow, Guardians 2 was great.
It was great, and yes, I'll give her that. It has some redeeming qualities, but at the end of the day, she was just boring. In this movie, she was boring. just take her out and it's.
Well,
That
I
no,
think
you can't say that. She's pretty important to the
I
story.
think she's not gonna last after Infinity War. Though,
She's dead.
So I think she's a goner. So.
Yeah,
it's possible.
I mean,
Yeah.
But she's a robot. You can rebuild her.
You ain't rebuilding this time. The Thanos thing,
She'll come back in like 20 years.
Kevin
Be like,
Feige
who?
has said that characters that die in Infinity War will not be resurrected, so they better stick to their guns. I'm fine with flashbacks. Always down for flashbacks or dream sequences.
Always.
But yeah, if people die,
What if we get a whole movie that's a flashback?
Batman v Superman, or I guess that was dream sequence. Sorry,
snap.
yeah. Well,
Same difference.
I would say something, but that would just spoil a Saw movie, so I'm not gonna, because there is one movie that is an entire flashback. Remember?
Go watch the
Saw retrospective. Watch all the Saws, then come back and watch the Saw retrospective. Then watch all the Marvel movies. Watch the Marvel retrospective.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we.
And then next year, get ready for that Grinch retrospective. I think we're actually gonna do it.
Let
for
us
the
know what
meme.
retro you want to see next, because we love doing this. So we'll do not anything, but
Yeah.
That's
You ain't getting a Man of Steel retrospective anytime soon, is what Dilmas is saying.
that's what I said.
You may get a
Quote
DC retrospective, but Man of Steel, what is that, 5 years? Fuck, it is 5 years.
5 years.
I always, you know what? This is what I'll say.
I'll watch it on 2 times speed.
Because there is a part of me one day I want to do a DC retro with all those new ones. This is the challenge, the gauntlet I'm laying down. You get us to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we will do a retrospective of Man of Steel. Do you think
That's
fair?
not even that much to ask for.
No, that's not.
That's pretty generous.
We're at like 250, like over. That's the only way we're gonna do it. Is we get there, so we can get monetized again.
And Jurassic Park retro.
Yeah, you're trying. I didn't know. Don't
Yeah, you said-
say that.
no,
Don't
he
sound like some
said,
child.
I want to do it for Jurassic World 2. He's like, no, because we're doing this. So he's like, you know what? When Jurassic World 3 comes around, it'd be better to do it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I thought you meant for this year.
I'll do it.
You could do right now. I'm just saying we're very busy right now. We're having enough time.
Yeah.
Listen, we're talking about.
We're already behind on doing these. That's why we recorded 2 tonight.
That's why you're getting like 2 a week. Ronan, let's talk about that blue
Row
motherfucker.
9.
Love the opening of him when he just cold clocks that guy with the hammer.
And then like the
uses
blood.
and
yeah.
his
send it
look
down.
is phenomenal. The Lee Pace is phenomenal. His voice is phenomenal. The character, I think, is just, you don't learn much about him. Liam and I have argued about this for years. Yeah, they throw
Liam and me.
They throw 2 lines about how he's against the war and blah blah. And I didn't sign no peace treaty, and like they should have got more into that. Like it, because at one point it feels like okay, he's fighting for his country, but then really, or his planet, his country. But then really, it just feels like no, he's just selfish and he just kind of wants to destroy shit. Like it feels like yeah, he wants to redeem his people, but more or less he just likes wrecking stuff and he just wants power and. That's fine, but they don't jump deep into either one. And that's fine because it's not fine, but that's to be expected because it's a Marvel thing. And I still think he's fine. I think most Marvel villains I don't think are really bad other than a few. I think they're just there. They're just your generic, hey, this is the person that's in your way.
They don't go above and beyond.
Yeah, and I think his theatricality and the actor does a good job of making it like, you know, a decent 0.5, like just a little bit above. Like that's why I'm excited to rank the villains, to see where would I actually rank him. But as a villain, I think he is pretty lame, and that's where I'm gonna fight everyone till the fucking day I die about Ego. Like Ego is such a good villain. That's another reason why I like Guardians, because like, oh, I like the movie, and you got a good villain. This is the thing where I like the movie a lot, but if I can take it down, that's where I'm gonna take it down. As Ronan just being Ronan the Accuser. It's like okay, like, and some people are with me on this. It fits the movie, but it doesn't fit the scene for me where Peter Quill dances and outsmarts him. It was funny when I first saw it, but I never can get past that. This guy who apparently just wants to destroy this planet so bad is distracted by a guy dancing. I think at this moment you just slam that hammer down, and that's where sometimes one of the only scenes where I think the humor kind of hurts for me in retrospective. That I never can buy that. It's a fun, cute little scene. Like I'm distracting you, you turd blossom. Like it fits. But it doesn't fit at the same time, so I don't know. But yeah, Ronan, he's decent 0.5.
I think that final. I mentioned it earlier how the final fight scene is just kind of Ronan getting quickly bopped like 3 separate occasions.
Classic Marvel.
There's never really a
Whiplash.
fight that happens, and that's disappointing. And I mean, it would have been tricky for sure how they could make him like have a logical fight with him when he has an Infinity Stone
Just
and
make
that
it for
hammer
a fight
there.
for the hammer. Keep getting the hammer out of his
Exactly,
hand.
there is ways to do it, and that would have been
Video
nice.
game boss battle, you know?
Video game boss battle. Yeah, I can't say anything else. Like he really is like there's just not much to him. He's he does have like scenes that just obviously his intro is very theatrical, and then he has that scene when he's up at Thanos' lair and he just fucking kills his assistant, like spins his head,
Right.
like that's pretty badass, and like he is intimidating in the way he acts throughout the movie, but you're right that there isn't really much depth there, and obviously if you compare it to the second movie, like he doesn't even light a candle to the big ego. So I think he's fine enough for this movie because obviously there was like focus elsewhere, and I don't know. I still had fun watching him. Over the when I was watching this movie again yesterday. Yeah, I think a big part of it is because he is intimidating nonetheless, and I do love his look. And if he was to come back, I'd probably be disappointed if this was like this is what we got from him for first movie. But since this is kind of a one and done, I don't know. He's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing to write home about, but I think he stands much taller than a lot of other villains that we've had in the MCU. So there's at least that.
Yeah.
There's at least that.
Oh, I think that his intro was badass. I think if I was that guy in that little head trap thing, the last thing I'd be saying is, are people signed a treaty? Obviously it's not doing jack shit because you're put in this situation.
I'm gonna remember that when I have to make gunpoint just randomly. Our people signed a treaty!
What? Well, that's what Roman says. It's like, my people know no such thing. It's Henry's fault. I mean,
He's such a pompous ass, Roman. He just always I don't remember killing our family. Like, he actually just says no to everybody. Like, that's just
Even Thanos, he doesn't give a shit, dude.
Yeah. I'm gonna destroy you next. And like, boy.
he is a very interesting villain. Just like, it's just the sense that
I
he
thought
just.
the point of our conversation was that he wasn't an interesting villain.
Well, I thought he was interesting because to me it wasn't about him killing everyone. He just wanted to kill Xandar.
Yeah, fair
That was his only.
My
goal.
whole thing was like, okay, then what's next?
What's next?
Thanos.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
Thanos.
yeah, I guess so.
What's next? Earth. I don't know. He would be the villain.
Oh,
of
there you go.
Infinity War.
You wrote Infinity War Part 2.
Boom. Kevin Feige. I'll take. What is the line again? Cash the check. What was it?
Cut the check.
Cut the check. Feige. Cut the check.
Yeah, I think he was badass. I love when Drax calls him to nowhere, and he just shows up, and Gamora's like, "You freaking imbecile," and Drax is like, and like he's just
I love until they reenact scenes.
Sometimes it's so half-assed.
Can you, before we're just gonna film, you do a reenactment of the entire? We're gonna do that. You don't gotta do a story for beat, but we're gonna get a camera before Infinity War. And we're gonna call it Infinity War for Dummies, and you're gonna explain from Iron Man to Black Panther what has happened in the MCU.
I can act this out.
Oh,
Is this
yeah.
legit?
This is legit, and you're gonna do your certain scenes. We're gonna
I'm
have to.
so
We're just gonna
stoked.
get a camera in front of you, and we'll see. And maybe I'll splice some footage to it. I don't know. I'm not promising that, but Taylor will. I don't know how long this is gonna be, but it's gonna happen.
I
It's
get
gonna be
props.
You gotta bring your own props.
You gotta bring your own props.
I can
got
provide
props.
you Captain America's shield and outfit and mask. That's about the only props I got.
And I have a trio back that you can pretend is Groot.
Really?
And I have my sister's 5-year-old Black Widow costume that you could maybe use
Really?
for I don't know what, but
If Kevin Feige somehow gets this footage, I think that's good prospects for us.
cut the check.
Cut the check. Oh yeah, no, he's a good villain.
Wow, that just jumped. What else do we want to tackle? I don't
Let's
think
talk about Yondu.
No, yeah. I like Yondu a lot. He's very different from Guardians 2, obviously. He's a very, like, in a different place here. I don't buy other people find a little inconsistency with this character and find he's a bit more hard-nosed in this one. He is, but I think it's just where, like I was saying, where he is in life, where people are like, oh, he's going to kill Peter Quill. Even when I watched it, take Guardians 2, when I watched Guardians 1, I never got that vibe. Even when he's, okay, so yeah, he is beating up his son, so yeah, maybe it's kind of like a be a spirit thing, but like, I always got the vibe he was always just trying to wait for Peter to figure a way out. Like, it always felt like he was delaying Yondu. I never got that vibe of, yeah, okay, maybe he did hit him, but I never got the vibe that he was gonna kill Star-Lord at any time. I always thought he was still pulling for him, you know, and I think he's a great character. He's just kind of a piece of shit in this movie. He's not, you don't get to see that much emotion. That's why I like Guardians 2, because they bring some new levels to that character. But with Guardians 1, he's not a villain, but he's another antagonist to be around. And I love that scene with the broker, with the like
Yeah.
a scene that could be super annoying, especially on rewatch, still holds up, and it fits his character when he will just be joking and talking about his trolls, but he slyly slips into like intimidating, Michael Rooker is phenomenal, and it's he's gonna be pretty missed in the next few films, I think. So
Yeah, I think one thing for him that you mentioned there, you might feel inconsistent. I think that's because he does a really good job of, obviously he likes to joke around a lot. I think that's like the essence of like the Ravagers, is that they don't really take things too seriously all the time. But I think that while that is like his personality, he kind of just hides behind like that really intimidating mask a lot of the time. And obviously, I think he kind of has to, because he's, you know, the leader of the Ravagers, or at least a pretty sizable amount of people, and so he kind of needs to, you know, have that intimidation factor. But I always kind of get the vibes that even when he's being very aggressive towards Peter, obviously I'm a bit biased now that we've seen the second movie and we know how much they really mean to each other, but I don't know, I guess I don't really buy that he's like would seriously just kill him right then and there. And I love, obviously, his arrow is like one of the coolest weapons in the MCU, so sweet, and I love how they kind of hint at like what it is. Yeah. Like for like there's at least like 2 occasions before you actually get to see it in action, whereas he just like kind of will move his trench coat aside and you see his arrow sticking out, and that can be
Up to your
and that
interpretation.
moves his trench coat and his arrows sticking out. I knew that was coming, but I decided to go for it anyway. And yeah, I like that they just do that, and that obviously to the people in the movie who know what it does already, they're frightened. But as a viewer, you don't know. But then we get to see it later, and obviously, I've always loved the visual of like how his fin like lights up when he's using it. You know, the one thing though, when I was watching that scene when he kills like all those. What race are those like the Ronins people?
Kree?
Yeah, Kree.
Is that what they're? Kree, yeah. When in that little like grass field there, when they like have their guns up to him, and he, that's when he finally whips out the arrow and kills them all. I feel like there was a lot of time for them to shoot him.
Oh yeah.
And if they did, like
Game over.
the arrow would stop moving and they would all live. So that's something that I honestly didn't really notice, but I was watching with my roommate, and he's like, why didn't they just shoot him? Like, you know what, man, you're completely right.
They
Not
wanted him as a
nothing to say.
hostage, you
What's
know?
that?
The hostage. They want him as a hostage.
Yeah, but
That's all I got.
after you see like all those other dudes just get like
Yeah,
instantly killed. Either way though, I think I can forgive it a little bit, because that is such an awesome scene, and finally getting to see that arrow just go off on a bunch of dudes is interesting. So I like Yondu. Obviously he's amplified tenfold because of the second movie, and obviously watch the Golden Geeks. We gave him a lot of praise for his role in that movie. So obviously that improves the performance of this movie kind of retroactively, and that's what we're doing retro. That's what we do. So I like Yondu. And I'm not really disappointed of the lack of his presence or maybe depth in this movie, because I know that it was at the cost of other characters getting a shit ton of depth, and then it's not that he never gets it. In fact, he does, and he gets a beautiful send-off in the end. So Yondu.
Not this end, but the 2.
Yes, and yeah, like you said, Michael Rooker, just fantastic in the role for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Between the voice and just the intimidation factor and the ability to just like be funny when he needs to be as well.
Yeah.
I love Yondu. I think he's got so much extra like
Sauce.
Arrows.
so many extra arrows.
Saucy arrows.
He's got so much going for him, and just ever since we get introduced to him,
he's got so much going on.
He does.
He's got the looks, he's got the girls, he's got the money, he's got a good job, he's got friends, he's got the respect of many.
I
His
just
trolls.
He's got a large collection of console pets.
Yeah.
I love when we get to see him at first, and Chris Pratt's like, "Hey Yondu," and he's like, "What is?"
Hey Yondu.
Hey, Yondu.
Hey Yondu.
What is?
Hey,
it?
Long
Yondu.
time no see, buddy.
He's like, he always dives back to the story. He's like, when I picked you up on Terra, these boys here, Terran?
No, he's a
Terra?
Terran, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
It's like when I picked you up on Terra, these boys here wanted to eat you. They ain't tasted no Terran before. And I love how he always goes back to that all the time. Like, it's so funny. And I think just
He's like, that doesn't make you a
relationship-
good dude. Normal people don't eat people.
I think it's just it's such a good relationship that he has with Chris Pratt, and yeah, definitely after seeing Guardians 2, it just adds so much more light to their
And
relationship.
you notice watching this one again how they hint towards that storyline that they were inevitably gonna go to in the second movie, that father figure aspect.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that the films can connect and reflect off each other in
Ooh,
that sense.
connect and reflect in that sense.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's the whole theme with the two of them is just fantastic, and I love it how it at the end, even though Chris Pratt plays him and schools him at his own game, it's funny how you just think, oh, is he gonna go and kill Chris Pratt because he just seemed to really lay down the law there, saying I'm gonna kill you if you try and screw with me, but he just smiles and laughs it off. He's like, yeah, that's Star-Lord. That's my not real son, but son.
Yeah, I think that actually is important to know because, yeah, that final scene when he does see that doll and just kind of laughs it off, right? That is an important point to show their relationship in that. I mean, obviously there's probably some silent salt behind that grin, but at the end of the day, it's Peter Quill, it's his son, he got his old man, something
then,
like that.
To be honest, if he did get the orb, then what's he have the orb for? Who's gonna buy it? Because all of the people who were willing to buy it
From
are gone.
Yonder, you mean?
I'm
Yeah.
sure he can find somebody.
There's
in
probably
the
a lot of
universe.
people out there who are
Yeah.
interested in Infinity Stones.
I'm sure Silver Surfer has a few tokens and he passes.
Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer.
Galactus.
Boys.
No, blacks just eat them.
What other? I think the only other character that we haven't mentioned is John C. Reilly's character. He's in there a couple
He's
times.
fine. I
He's
love
fine.
John C. Reilly. He's fun, but I'm mad that he's not back.
You're glad? You're
I'm
mad?
mad. Why? And no place for him in two, but I'm
It's true.
John C. Reilly. I think we've debated this many times with cast. I think he's easily Will Ferrell's best screen partner. I love John C. Reilly. Walk Hard is one of my favorite underrated comedies. So a movie that not many people have seen. John C. Reilly. He's just great, man.
Yeah, he's funny. I like the scene when he's going to talk to the commander and he's like, he said he's not an asshole. Wait, what is the scene exactly? He's like, he said he's an asshole, but he's not, and I'm quoting here, 100% a dick. And she's like, and do you believe him? Well, ma'am, I don't truly believe that anyone's 100% a dick. I like that little exchange. And I love the section at the end when he kind of sends them off and, shows that they rebuilt his ship for him.
Yeah.
And then he, asks them if they have any more questions, and then Rocket's like, what if I want something but it belongs to someone else? He's like, well, that's called theft. He's like, but what if I want it more than them? And then Drax is like, what if someone does something personal and I decide to remove their spine or something like that? He's like, that's
murder.
That's murder. That's one of the worst crimes of all.
That's crime at the highest offense.
So yeah, I think he's obviously very little in this movie, but once again his comedy lands in this movie and connects with the other characters really well.
He should come back.
Yeah, and I like that he's kind of that connection, so that the people of Xandar know that the Guardians are on their side. I like that he's kind of the bridge between that sort of alliance, if you will. Yeah.
What do you guys think of Stan Lee's little cameo?
Yes, the
player.
right at the start when Rocket's
Oh,
got the
I
camera on
actually
him.
quite like it. I
Really?
really enjoy this one. Yeah.
It's all right. It's good.
Why do you enjoy it?
I don't know. It's just I like when they put Stanley in kind of weird scenarios like that. Like in Deadpool,
I like that Rocket is kind of just giving him a hard time.
Yeah.
That's what I like about
like in
it.
Deadpool when he's a strip club owner. And I like scenes where he kind of where it's a bit more active. Like we talked about that in Cat, where he just walks up and oh no, I'm gonna fire. I like in Black Panther, even though Black Panther's not anything that comedic. I just like that he's on screen for almost 30 seconds. I'm gonna take these trips and these are mine. And he's not even saying anything quippy. I just like watching Stan Lee. Stan Lee should be in these movies more, but he should be.
He is so important that it
Yeah.
is fun to give him.
They should make a movie of him, John C. Reilly, and Howard the Duck, and just
Wow.
call it something.
Call it Excelsior.
Boom,
Oh,
$1 billion right there. Cut the check.
Cut the check,
Cut the
buddy.
check.
I was gonna say that, but I keep forgetting that one.
Now we took in their in joke and we made ourselves. And then on the Avengers cast, they're always walking around being like, 1 or a million, right?
Yes.
Go watch our tumor review.
That was a very cheap
you know
plug.
what that means?
That was one of the cheapest plugs of all of these
God,
first. There, but you can cover it up with that one.
Do we have any other big things? I literally have 2 notes left.
We can talk about the post-credit scene. One of them is
Collector.
the
and
collector,
Duck.
Little Howard the Duck scene.
Yeah.
I think that's the only
Why is
one.
it not your left one?
I guess the other one is that Groot, the little Groot dancing with Drax in the background.
Yeah.
Is that even? I guess that's
Technically, it is.
technically the credit scene.
Yeah. But they're fun. I remember popping, which is a big wrestling term for being very excited and loud. I popped huge for seeing Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck is not a character that I really care that much about. His movie is awful. One day we are going to review it. It was the very first Marvel movie ever. George Lucas produced it. It is god awful, but it's just that cousin in the family. Like, oh my god. And at that point, I was on such a high. Just seeing Howard the Duck was great. And then, like I said, voiced by Seth Green. He has another small scene in Guardians. I want to see him more. I want, if they get to Guardians 4 and they change up the team, especially you got Seth Green voicing him, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think we need a Howard the Duck movie, but he could be on the fucking roster. He's a duck that's a detective. Like, let's do this, you know?
He could definitely, they could easily swindle him into being, a plot for, even just a section of a movie, just for them to solve one aspect of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's pretty much all I had for notes and such.
Yeah. Yeah, the 2 things, I already said it.
I have one more
Tanner
thing,
kind of
actually.
over-talked on me, but I said, that line where the guy says, that was my favorite knife. Fantastic. And I actually think the setup for the team is great over the orb, how, Gamora takes it, and then it's just, Rocket and Groot are after Peter, and Peter's after the orb, and he's after the Gamora, and Gamora's after the orb, and it felt like a natural setup. Lots of times these team movies, maybe don't feel so natural. It just feels like we're just literally throwing everything together and hope for the best. This felt like, obviously it's not a team-up movie, but it didn't feel like that. It felt like these people just happened to meet at this time, and even with Drax just being in the jail and having that connection of, hey, the guy you're working with killed my family. It makes sense, and I love the setup of the team. I just remember watching that scene. It just flows so well of Gamora to Peter, and then Peter with the Rock and Groot, and then they shoot her, and then like you said, they cut Groot down, and then the cops just show up. Like it just works. So
It is well done. Yeah. So one thing actually, when Drax does have that line, pretty much right at the end of the movie where he's like, "Oh, Ronan was just a puppet, and my real goal is to go kill Thanos." He says that to Gamora, and she has a look. I can't tell what her reaction is. Do you guys remember that? And if so, what is her reaction exactly? I can't tell if it's surprised or shocked that that's what he said or that's his intention, or if it's some sort of concern because maybe in some weird way she still feels like he is her father. Because I never really got the vibe that she has really any family relationship tie to Thanos. I've never got the vibe that she was emotionally attached to him.
I think it's more concern for Drax that he's replacing one obsession with another. He was all about killing. I gotta kill Ronan.
So he hasn't gotten over that.
Yeah, and I gotta kill Thanos. And it's
rage.
the same thing of okay, let's say he does kill Thanos. Is that finally it, or is there another person? I think that's what I've always taken from that scene where it's he's clearly not all right, you know. So that's what I get from it.
That works. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I had. Oh, actually, one more thing. In Infinity War, will Rocket Raccoon interact with an actual raccoon on Earth?
I hope so.
No. I don't think the Guardians go to Earth.
You don't think they go to Earth at all?
No, I think the Avengers go to them. Yeah. I think they're
on the moon.
Yeah, I think they're the gap. Guardians are up there to help that out. Even though it's something I do want to see, and I actually really want to see Peter Quill go back to Earth. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
I could see Quill going back just because it could be an ending for 1 or 2. I'll say 2 if they're trying to end things on a happy note. Not even for him to stay there, just to go down, just to see what it's like. But I don't think the other Guardians would join. Maybe Gamora if they're still lovey-dovey, but I don't think Rocket has a reason to go down to Earth. Maybe the fight ends up there, so maybe, but that's my prediction. No
I hope so. I hope the Guardians at least go to the Earth. I think that would be super cool.
The Earth.
The Earth.
I mean, Groot, even seeing another tree.
Oh, wait till he sees paper.
His paper.
Just seeing what we
right.
do.
This is what they do to my people.
yeah.
Man.
He's gonna want to be going to space real quick.
Yeah, get me out of here. Fuck this place.
Yeah.
They have records everywhere. I can't tell where my friend is. Yeah. Thanos is trying to blow this place up. I'm done with this place.
Yeah. Anything else, boys?
No.
Yeah, I will drop this the big old
1-0, a 10. Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
The 10 horror. Just dropping tens like it's nothing.
This is an old movie, so it doesn't count.
How is this an old movie?
2014. This
I
is
don't know
like
why I said
4
that.
years.
There was no thought. I just spoke.
How does this know
I don't even know what that means. Like, I have no idea.
It's
Okay.
tough for me because you know what, Ronan is not a negative, he's just a decent, and that's the best way I can say it. And I can say that is the negative about this movie, but really on the whole, like I said, it's a decent 0.5. The comedy's great, the soundtrack is great, and I love a lot of the songs that are on there, which was why I said it was great. But it's just like specifically there's songs that I had to listen to before by myself, like a lot of them, and they're in this movie incorporated. That's great. And there's songs that maybe I didn't listen to that much, and I listen to them now because I associate them with this movie.
Yes.
Great acting, great character moments. It's just like I said, it's a thrill ride with some emotion, lots of heart, and I think this really kick-started the MCU into the phase we're in right now. I think you can look at Iron Man to Avengers as one phase, and you can look at Iron Man 3 to this as like a mini phase, even though you have your phases of like the way, like the tone they were, and then this to about, I'd say Thor Ragnarok as far as the tone. Like other than Civil War, a lot of the movies felt they were taking this direction. Even, which one of my biggest hang-ups is with Doctor Strange, that felt like that was hindered because it took too much, you should throw in some of that quippy, everyone's being fun sort of moments where I didn't think that was needed. That's why I really like Black Panther and Civil War, because there was a time for comedy, but it got serious. But I feel like the majority of the new MCU films were really affected by Guardians after this, because they, like, look at Ragnarok, look at Homecoming. They're very quippy, they're very comedic, they're very mile-minute. You got Ned, you have Loki, like, everybody's quipping and saying that stuff, where it was a lot like that in Avengers because you have these characters, but this felt like it was a new tone. I think after Infinity War, we're going to see something new, because with Black Panther and Infinity War back-to-back, it feels like we're getting... I don't think it's going to be really serious, but I think just something different. Almost, I think, back to basics. It's almost like old is new. Like, I think they're doing older Marvel. But this, fantastic movie, great movie. Every time I watch it, it still holds up. I'm always waiting for that time I'm going to watch it. Like, I didn't like it as much this time. Or, it's just like, nope, it's just great movie. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, this movie, easily one of my favorite Marvel movies. It's fresh, it's different, it's interesting, it's crazy, and I think, aside from the Avengers movie being something that had, like, you had your Iron Man, you had your Incredible Hulk, you had your Thor, all these different backstories and single stories that were building up towards their the collaboration of, like, their team forming in the Avengers. I mean, this movie, unlike Justice League that did it so not very well, this movie clearly
Very much bad.
Yeah, so very bad. This movie managed to do something that I think is so hard to do, and that DC really struggles to understand, is that, this movie managed to take 5 different characters and not give them, like, here's your Star-Lord, here's your Rocket movie, but give them a basic backstory that was so intriguing and interesting enough that it wasn't too overpowering of another character, and each one was slotted into a specific spot in this movie enough that it worked. They didn't have to, as I said, they didn't have to give us the Star-Lord Gamora movie or whatever, those standalone films, but they threw them in, and the chemistry and what they were going for in the theme played off so well with every other factor in this film that I think that is such an impressive thing to do, especially with us not knowing anything about these characters, not knowing what's to come, where this is coming from, what it's gonna do. I think that has a lot to boost for it.
Because even Just League, like, sorry, you guys are gonna hate me. I think Just League is is an alright comparison, but I think the biggest one, well, maybe not for you, I was gonna say Suicide Squad, but that's a 10 out of 10 movie for you, so that point is mute, I think, for you. But for me, that's where you see the reverse of how, to me, it can
An
go
entirely
poorly.
new cast.
Yeah, an entirely new story, kind of newish world, and just for me, just off the rails, so. But
Not in a good way.
this is the theme.
I mean, off the rails, I guess you never really, but it has, I'm going to stop.
The Guardians off the rails ends up you go off the rails, but it's safe because you land. Like, that was fun. Suicide Squad, you just crash, and then your doctor's Jared Leto, and it's like,
oh no.
And not the Blade Runner Jared Leto. Just
I feel like I'm gonna have to re-evaluate my rating for that movie.
you really are.
Have you watched it again since you saw it in theaters?
Should I have?
I have.
Movies that I give a perfect score to. I usually at least watch one more time before the year's.
I haven't found myself in a position where I wanted to buy it. To be honest.
Wow.
You know when I
stop. Just get back to Guardians.
Why are you disappointed?
Because you gave this movie a 10.
You know,
and
how
I give
excited
out a
I was
lot of
after
10s,
watching
but
it?
I stand by them. So this was the best this of the year, this was the best horror of the year, best sci-fi.
Don't you buy like every Marvel movie just because it's a Marvel movie? And you're not gonna
Usually.
buy Suicide Squad?
When I go to buy,
You gotta complete the collection. There's only 5
I
DC.
put my hand on Suicide Squad. I look over. I'm like, oh, there's Jumanji. Or like, I put my hand on there. I'm like, oh, there's freaking Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance or something.
Just casually just chilling there.
You own that movie
It's always
already,
there on
don't
every
lie.
shelf. Is Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance.
Yeah.
Just sitting there. There's like all your Marvel movies and DC movies right in the middle. Spirit of Vengeance.
I don't think there is a store. If anyone lives in BC, Canada, BC, you know, fuck it, Canada, worldwide. If there's anybody that a Walmart, a Best Buy can physically find a copy of Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance for purchase, please, whether it's now or years from now. If you watch this podcast 10 years from now, please post a picture in the comments.
We'll
I
even
don't
allow discount bins.
Yeah,
for this.
I don't even. Yeah, discount bin. I don't think I can't remember a time where I said Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance like a year after that was released.
I don't even know what the cover of the movie looks like.
It's
so.
just him
It's
on a
really
bike.
cool.
It's oh god.
What do you
really
What do you give Guardians of the Galaxy? What's your rating?
I give it a 10 out of 10.
Okay.
Same as Suicide Squad.
I knew
Just
that.
same as Suicide Squad. Remember that anytime he gives a movie 10, it's the exact same equivalent of Holy to Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these guys pretty much said exactly what I want to say. You know, the idea of taking all of these characters in the new world and bringing it all together it is worthy of praise, and that's why I think this is a very positive reviews. Because watching this again, realized that all my flaws with the movie have been completely remedied in the second one. So anything that I had wrong with it has kind of been undone. So this is really like pretty close to a perfect movie, I would say, in that sense. So I'm not gonna give it a 10 because I don't do numbers and that's a cop out. But this is a very excellent movie. I love this movie, and it's one that honestly, like of all the Marvel movies, I think this is like anytime I rewatch this, it's always like the same enjoyment level. Like it never really wavers. I'm always just incredibly.
Now it's even better because 2 you said.
Now it's even better, and I said 2. I think I like it better than the first one on our review, and I've said since then. But now there's like a real competition going on. I don't know which one I like more.
Yeah, I'm very nervous for our ranking episode. As we've done these retros, I've looked at my list like, man, there's a lot that's changing.
This movie for sure it's 100% like in the. Oh man, there's so many good
Top
Marvel
3?
movies. That's hard to say.
Yeah, because
it's hard to say because if I think Guardians is 2 is better than 1. Oh man,
Yeah,
I don't know if I can put it in the top 3 then.
You're gonna have to eventually.
I'd say 100% in the top 5. I'll guarantee that.
The only one I don't even.
It'll honestly, I don't know.
Yeah,
This is really stressful.
I don't even know what my number 1 is. The only one I know is my last one. That's all I know.
Dark World?
Maybe. Have to
So
find out.
You won't do like a rating system of 10 or anything, but would you do like a percentage out of 100?
That's
that
He
too
does
close?
letters.
Yeah,
Remember, he does letters.
that's a good point.
yeah, that was more like a temporary thing.
For one day, I did letters.
I
liked it.
I don't know. I feel like it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah,
This
I liked
movie, if this were, I don't know. I'll make a tier list for the Marvel movies when we've rewatched them all, and I would say no doubt this one will be in the S tier, in the top,
it.
in the top echelon of movies.
Yeah, S is good for people that.
It just has it all, man. It's got its soundtrack, it's got visuals, it's got characters, it's got story, it's got fun stuff, and you know what? It's got it all.
You know who else has it all? Geek First Podcast. Taylor, where can they find all those goods?
Well,
and not just
goodies.
the big D.
All those goods. Well, when you're done listening to your mixtape, you can obviously find us with your internet connection in the search bar. Geekverse Space Podcast on your Facebook. Type it in there. It's great. It's going to be a good time. I will also quickly shout out that there will be a very special Raw or Not episode coming out. It's going to be superhero themed to time in with Avengers, Infinity War. Oh, yeah. It's going to
The
be...
first I'm hearing about this too.
Really?
It's pretty cool.
It's going to be a
You
great
guys playing
time.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance or?
We're going to play some old
That's a good
school
game.
superhero games. So we're doing
That's
our
more
research.
fitting for the show.
Very fitting. We're doing our research, checking out what was on the good old Ataris and Segas and stuff like that. I think there's some good old cringy...
You gotta make sure they're Marvel though. 'Cause
They
there
have
is-
to be Marvel.
There is Infinity War, so.
They have to be Marvel, yeah.
And then you can do the DC one when Justice League 2
Is there
comes
any
out,
Ghost
am I
Rider
right?
games out there?
I hope so, because I would play it. I'm going to take
Fuck.
But we will also have it won't just be me and Ruben on the show. There will be a third guest actually joining us.
You know it's not me, because I just said this is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Or he's lying, but we don't know.
Or I'm lying.
But yeah,
You don't know.
there will be a third guest, so that's great. But until then, make sure you
Wait,
check
a third
out.
guest? Wouldn't it be the first guest? Because you guys
Yeah.
are the
Yeah,
hosts.
thank you.
3 guests in one episode. Ruben and Taylor taking the day off.
Yeah.
Fuck these
It's
superheroes.
not an announcement if there's a third guest. If you didn't announce it, there's one and two guests.
There'll be a third host on that show with us. So yes, that's huge and exciting. But yeah, until then, make sure you check out our most recent St. Patty's Day Rod or Not.
Which is pretty old from when this came out. But check out all the
Pretty
Raw
old.
Notes.
Yeah,
There's
check
a
out all the
playlist
Raw
on
Check out
YouTube.
everything we've ever produced.
Yes,
every
content-wise.
single
Everything.
thing.
Gauntlet is popping off right now. There's title matches galore. I'm sure me and Taylor are just like destroying all the competition as usual. Marvel retrospectives, Geek First. I know we're reviewing at the Yin Yang as far as April. I know there's movie after movie. So
after movie.
if you like movies, we're reviewing them right now. If you like what we do, head over to Patreon. You can get episodes like this. Gauntlet, Spider-Man Retrospective early at the $1 or $5 level. If you can't support us there, because we understand you got to pay for that chimichanga. If you got to pay for that chimichanga and you can't give us that $1, give us a review, give us a like, give us a subscription, share the load.
Share the
ladies and
load.
gentlemen. Don't just stare at it, share it. You want to help us out if you like this content.
Tell your
That-
friends, tell your sisters.
yeah,
you
that
know.
helps us create more content, that helps us get better gear, that helps us with everything. I thank you very much for everyone that tuned into this, whether it's now or 10 years when you send us that Ghost Rider discount bin.
Have
A marvelous day, and we'll see you in the post-credit scene.
What did you do?
I said catch.
My dad's like, when editing, can you darken the footage to make it appear like it's nighttime? I said, it's possible, but I recommend just filming at nighttime.
Nice. Showed him.
I'm ready.
Do you need more water there, Taylor?
I think I'll manage, but it's much appreciated. Thank you.
As in, like, you'll take some, or
No, I'll be good without it.
okay.
Ready to go?
Where did I put my water? That's the big question
That's
now.
a very big question indeed.
I
You
don't.
don't have it back here.
I feel like it'd be strange if I filled it up, which I did, and then didn't bring it back here. But honestly, I've done it before.
Still must, ladies and gentlemen.
The D-man. The big D, as some call it, right? Until Travis
Yeah, I
undermines
guess
him.
I'm the big D.
The big D. The big D is Disney. Everyone knows that.
Not in my household.
Really? I thought you loved Disney. And you can't deny that they are a superpower.
They are, but
They're
there's
global conglomerate.
something else that has a superpower in my household.
What's that?
The big D.
Oh.
Which has produced a baby, so it does have some sort of superpower.
That's true.
Can't say
Pretty-
I've done
pretty
that.
cute baby,
Actually,
too.
can't say I've done that knowingly. But
I was gonna say.
Knowing
You don't know.
you can never know in this galaxy.